Greetings, Facebook people. It's, what is this? Thursday evening, 9th or something of February. You know, when you're a retired person, you lose track of time. That's just part of the deal. Hey, I'm here in the Ozarks. That's why I'm often call myself Ozark Tim. You can see who I'm rooting for in the Super Bowl, can't you? Yes, that's right, the Kansas City Chiefs. Go Chiefs! It's great to be in winning team land. I'm sure the Chiefs have broken the hearts of their followers, but probably nothing like the Ducks. You know, the Ducks usually get so close, yet so far. And I'm still an Oregon Duck fan. That's my school, man. I'm an alum. I'm always going to be a Duck fan. But I have to say, it's nice to be in SEC land. And I looked up online what it would cost me to get to a Arkansas Razorback game, which we would see teams like Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, these teams in the South, you know, the Southeastern Conference. I can get in a nosebleed seat for $35. Now, in Oregon, like 4 years ago, I went to a game in the nosebleed seats that my brother-in-law set up for us. I had to pay $75, and that was to watch them lose to Washington State. But even if the Razorbacks lose to Alabama, I've still gone to an Alabama game. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to it. Plus, I think they've got a pretty good basketball team, and I heard that the baseball team is their best team. I don't know if that's always true. And not even to mention the women's sports. I'm sure there's some great teams there too. So we're about 40 minutes, half hour north of Fayetteville. Everything's pretty much right here. Walmart headquarters, Daisy BB gun. You're gonna put your eye out with that. Red Ryder BB gun makers. Their headquarters is here. JB Hunt. It's a trucking or something like that. Big, huge trucking or shipping international company. And of course, Tyson Chicken is here. So, I mean, this is kind of the happening place if you're in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. And then there's southern Missouri. It's beautiful. The countryside, the Ozark Plateau, driving up to Branson. Beautiful. And we went up to Kansas City to visit our good friends, the Ramies, Steve and Marie Ramey, and they graciously put us up. They put up with us, and they put us up, all at the same time. And we got to see the Kansas City get a win barely out of the Bengals. That was exciting. And just fellowship together, got to see their kids. They came over, and the grandkids, so that was a delight to see, you know, how much they love their grandkids and how their grandkids respond to them. And yeah, it's been good. I'm doing a thing on Tuesday nights with Steve. He's piloting a kind of a revised version of the, some of you may know this program. It's a series called The 5 Aspects of Men, and there's one for women too. So they look at these aspects of that everyone has been created with, every human being. So there's the Lord of the earth, that goes back to Genesis, what people were called to be in the garden. The men and women were called to tend the garden, you know, we call it paradise, right? The Garden of Eden, before there was sin and they were cut off from the tree of life. So he had a duty, and we still have a job to do as men and as women working together. Then there's the husbandman. We're responsible for realms to husband, to tend, to take care of, whether it's a farmer tending his garden, or a teacher tending his classroom, or a husband tending to his wife and cherishing his wife and making sure his family is well cared for and tended well. Then there's the Savior aspect. And by the way, there are complementary aspects to all of these for the women. If you look it up, 5 aspects of man and women by the Bill and Barb Mauser, you'll find some recordings you can listen to. And he does a great job introducing this concept. And they follow, by the way, a complementarian view of gender. So if I won't go into that and differentiate it from the egalitarian view, but the complementarian view is, I believe, the biblical view. And anyway, they're proponents of that. You know, if you're looking for sort of their base foundational philosophy. Okay, then there's the sage. That's kind of that's the area I feel like I should be at this point in my life. You know, I picture a sage as some old guy with a beard, like a Gandalf beard, and all these young people sitting beneath his feet like Aristotle or Socrates. Oh, please impart your wisdom to us, oh man of many years. You know, but you've got to be a person with wisdom to be a sage, right? Because the opposite of a sage is an old fool, and you don't want to be that. And then there's the glory of God. So, for instance, humans are created in the image of God. So we have a sense of justice, for instance. You know, I doubt that squirrels, if they see a squirrel stealing a nut, they probably don't go, I think he deserves 20 years. No, I think he deserves 10. No, he should probably just work it off, you know, through some kind of different kind of justice system. You know, we have a sense of justice. We have a sense of fairness, a sense of you know, sacrificial love, that kind of thing. So when we exhibit those things, we're exhibiting the glory of God. Now, each of these, that kind of went over the created purposes of those, but then there's the corruption of those, and because of sin. So that would be the fallen aspects, and we study those also. So, for instance, a pirate would be a good example of probably, I would say, a corrupted savior aspect. He's still trying to save things, but only for himself. I want to save that gold off that Spanish galleon. Let's steal it. I've saved it for myself. The English aren't gonna, or the Spanish aren't gonna have it anymore. Ha ha ha. You know, that was like Sir Francis Drake, who was it Queen Elizabeth I's favorite pirate? But you know, he was really a pirate, but she treated him like a co-equal. Anyway. This is what it is, and I do this on Tuesday nights. It's been really great. And on last week, I was actually able to be live with a couple of the guys who are in the study, and was able to see, you know, match the faces with that I'm usually only seeing through a Zoom call. So that's a really neat thing going on. Also, Courtney and Russ are living here now. If you don't know, Courtney's my daughter. And she is about ready to have her 4th child at the end of June. And they're renting a house in Centerton, and really enjoying that, having a backyard for the first time. And of course, those of you with kids, you know that changes everything when you finally get a backyard. I mean, oh, relief, please go play outside. You know, you're not all cooped up. So that's been great. I'm really happy for them. And it's in a nice, safe neighborhood. It's really a neat little like tiny home village, but not the kind you find in Portland where the mayor says, let's build a tiny home village and cram a bunch of meth addicts in there and other ne'er-do-wells. Now, I'm not saying they're all ne'er-do-wells, please, please, please. But you know that some of them will be, and it probably isn't always going to be the safest place for someone to live. But anyway, this is more like Walmart people who might come into town who need, you know, a temporary place to be. They might rent out a so they're like, I don't want to say normal people, but they're non-crime people. Let's just say that. They're not street crime people. And anyway, I did a video a while ago and took some scenes of that. But we are going through the letters to the 7 churches. I'm not sure how much further we'll get into Revelation, but we wanted to look at those. And this is a great book. It's not really a commentary. It's called The Lamb Wins, by a guided tour through the book of Revelation by Richard Buse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he does a great job of introducing, you know, just the viewpoints that people have had over the centuries, like the preterist view and the historist view, the parallel view. I think my view is, I'm going to call it the spinning plate view. I'll explain that later on another episode. Because it's interesting when you analyze how many different times Jesus comes back in the book of Revelation, and you say to yourself, why? Why does he come back multiple times? Well, the parallelist would say, well, it's like a football game where they're showing you different angles of, Patrick Mahomes, amazing run into the end zone, maybe from one angle, and then they're showing the same play maybe from overhead, or maybe they're showing the field from the blimp view, or from a side view, or from behind a cheerleader's shoulder, or something like that. So you're getting different perspectives. Like, this is the perspective of Jesus rescuing his people through the lens of the Egyptian plagues. Okay, so you see all this plaguey stuff going on. And then here is the view of Jesus rescuing his people from, say, the analogy that you see in the Bible of a wise woman, the patroness, and the lady folly, or lady, the foolish lady, the harlot who tries to draw in this naive boy. I'm talking about Proverbs 1 through 9. I'm sorry, I didn't lay the foundation there very well. But if you read Proverbs 1 through 9, you see this battle between these two women who are personifying wisdom and folly. And if the boy listens to Lady Wisdom and doesn't fall into the trap of the harlot, he'll live. But if he listens to the harlot and he sleeps with her, for instance, her husband is going to come home and kill him. So you see this analogy of, if you follow wisdom, the way of wisdom, you'll have life at the end. That's your reward, life. If you follow foolishness, you'll end up dead. Death will be the outcome. So for instance, if you look at Revelation, there's that whole thing of Babylon, this mystery Babylon thing. And of course, Babylon was a city where God's people were exiled and imprisoned. And Daniel, of course, the book of Daniel takes place, some of it during the Babylonian Empire's height, when Nebuchadnezzar was leader. And God says something in there in Revelation. It says, "Come out of her, my people," meaning the Babylon, the city that's opposite of the heavenly Jerusalem. So it's almost, again, this one spinning plate could be that God is going to rescue us through his Son in the same way he rescued his people out of Babylon and took them out of exile after they, paid off their 70 years of punishment. Anyway, the book does a really good job of introducing those viewpoints, and I have preterist people I respect. I used to be a person who followed the history. I would call it the Hal Lindsey view of it's all history unfolding. So, for instance, the locusts are Apache helicopters coming to fire at people. Now, I personally don't believe that anymore, but that is what a historist, I think I'm saying that right, would say. But anyway, we're going mainly we're focusing on the letters and what they say in terms of warning to these 7 cities that were in Asia Minor, or present-day Turkey, and cities like Ephesus and Pergamum and Laodicea. And just so happened that I was doing something, maybe I was sending something to Voice of the Martyrs, and they offered this complimentary book, which is all about the cities. It shows you pictures of what they look like now. It gives you some background of the cities, because like, for instance, I learned one thing about Laodicea, that there was a watering pipe or something that came into the city. But by the time the water got to, and maybe it was filling a spring, or like a bath or something where that was supposed to be hot, like a mineral spring maybe. So it was carrying the water. I think the water was supposed to be hot when it came to town. But anyway, by the time it got to Laodicea, because it was such a long trip, the water was lukewarm. And if you know the letter to Laodicea, Jesus says, he's talking about their faith, and he said, I wish you could be either hot or cold in your faith, but instead you're lukewarm, and it makes me want to spew you out of my mouth, or reject your so-called faith. And then he invites them, hey, open, I'm going to come knocking at your door, and if you open up the door to me and invite me in, then, I'll come in and dine with you, and things will be good. We'll have fellowship. So there's a warning, but there's promised blessings to the followers who are doing a good job, And some of them, like Philadelphia, for instance, I don't think they get any rebuke. And what's interesting is when you look at those promises, they're all kingdom-related promises. None of them are promises related to going to heaven when you die, because, quite frankly, that has nothing to do with the inheritance. The inheritance is an Abrahamic land inheritance. Read Psalm 37. Look at Matthew 5. The meek inherit heaven? No, they inherit the earth. Look at Revelation 5. He made us to be a kingdom of priests in heaven? No, on the earth. It's earth, 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 earth. And you understand why when you look at the Abrahamic covenant, the promises he gave to Abraham always related to land inheritance. So personally, I am not thinking I'm going to go to heaven when I die. I'm thinking I'm going to be in the ground rotting or moldering in the grave, as a Civil War era person would say. And when Jesus decides to come back and resurrect his people, it's going to be an all-together event. All together now, all together now, all together now, all together. So I might as well be practicing that Beatles song, because we're going to all wake up out of our so-called slumber. I don't believe in soul sleep, but it will seem like we just woke up out of a long, long nap. Wow, how much time passed, Paul? Well, 2,000 years for me, Tim, but what, only 75 for you, huh? you lucky dog. But resurrection is the thing we're looking forward to. We're not looking to be ghosts that come out of a body. But anyway, I digress once again. Well, tonight I thought my main event tonight is to read from a wonderful book that I read to my grandkids this year at Christmas time. And it's illustrated by Andrew Peterson's son. Now, Andrew Peterson, if you don't know, he's a singer, he's not well known. That's what's sad about it. He's so good that he's not well known. How does that work? He's kind of an under-the-radar musician, and he's also the author of the Wing Feather series. Some of you have heard about that. I think it's on Amazon now, the animated series. But it's a great set of books if you like the fantasy genre. And his son is an illustrator, and he's made these awesome illustrations in this book. And then the other authors are great guys too. And they just tell the story of how God's plan was to bring his chosen king, his installed king of Psalm 2, into this world and wrest control of it from the evil one who's called the God of this age. And the era that we're now living in, Paul calls it this evil age. And anyway, the king is going to wrest control of this world from Satan's hands. And when that happens, oh man, we're talking harmony restored, paradise restored. Even wolves are going to lay down with lambs and be friendly, and babies are going to be able to infants are going to be able to stick their hands in the holes of poisonous snakes and not worry about it. I mean, the whole creation has been in rebellion since the sin of man. And it's longing for the revelation of the sons of God. That would be us, the people who are God's sons, and that's a title. A son is a leader. For instance, David and Solomon were called sons of God, not because they came from, some sperm event involving God and someone else, a goddess or something. No, it's because they were installed as God's representatives on earth when they were kings. So when David was serving as a king, he was the son of God. When Solomon was serving as king, he was the son of God. And of course, we know the ultimate son of God is the king that will never die, unlike David and Solomon, and the king that never sinned, unlike David, Solomon, and the rest of us, and the one who's going to be able to actually take Satan and have him thrown into the lake of fire, which means utterly destroyed. You remember Gollum at the end of The Lord of the Rings in The Return of the King? Remember when he went into the lava pit and the ring got destroyed along with him? That's what it's going to be like for Satan. And sadly, for anybody else who rejects the Messiah, at the Great White Throne Judgment, there's this thing called the second death. The second death. So I take that as meaning it's going to be a second time dying. How horrible to be, temporarily brought out of your grave. And I don't know if you're still in a rotting corpse and somehow you're semi-conscious. I mean, and you're told to bow your knee to Jesus. Every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So I'm assuming that you're going to be part of that crowd. There's going to be some willingly doing it and some regrettably doing it and wishing they had listened when they had a chance. But then you're going to be people are going to be thrown into the lake of fire if they've rejected Christ. Not a good thing. There's not much of a history in that. Well, enough of that. I'm going to start with a couple of songs to lead us off tonight, and then I'm going to read from that book I mentioned called The Story of God, Our King. And by the way, when I did this with my grandkids, I recorded myself reading, because if I don't do that, I have to keep turning around and looking at the book, and it's just awkward. So you'll see the pictures better if I don't keep turning around, and I'm going to play a recording that I made of myself reading it, okay? It's just, I think we're both going to enjoy it a lot more if I do it that way. All right, here we go. How can you explain? How can you describe a love that flows from east to west and runs as deep as it is wide? You know all our hopes, you know all our fears. Words cannot express the love we feel, but we long for you to hear. So listen to our hearts, hear our spirits sing a song of praise that flows from those you have redeemed. We will use the words we know to tell you what an awesome God you are. Words are not enough to tell you of our love, so listen to our hearts. If words could fall like rain from these lips of mine, if I had 1,000 words, I'd still run out of time. But if you listen to our hearts, every beat will say, thank you for the life, thank you for the truth, thank you for the way. So listen to our hearts, hear our spirits sing a song of praise that flows from those you have redeemed. We will use the words we know to tell you what an awesome God you are. Words are not enough to tell you of our love, so listen to our hearts. So listen to our heart, hear our spirit sing a song of praise that flows from those you have redeemed. We will use the words we know to tell you what an awesome God you are. Words are not enough to tell you of our love, so listen to our hearts. Words are not enough to tell you of our love, so listen to our hearts. All right, let's get on to the reading that I promised you.